Good morning, everyone. Mike here from Safeguard Solutions. We're on today with another episode of Wired for Wellness. Today, I'm very happy to have on a true leader in our community, Tony Gareri. Tony, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mike. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Glad to hear that. Tony is the CEO of Roma Moulding, but Tony is a lot more than that. Tony, I wanted to start off the morning just by saying thank you for being here with us today. And Tony, why don't you tell us your story about how you became the CEO of Roma Moulding and your leadership in the community?
Yeah. So first off, always happy to share some of the great things we're doing. I love what you're doing in your business and through this podcast. So
Thank you.
happy to contribute for sure. As far as myself, became CEO, I believe 14 or 15 years ago. This is a family run and operated business, and my dad started it in 1984. And for context, I was 6. I'm 47 today.
Wow.
And born to immigrant parents. I just saw my parents working very, very hard. There's something special about immigrant parents. The pedigree of wanting to succeed and work far exceeds anything I've ever seen. And being brought up in that kind of environment through osmosis, you tend to equate that as normal. My dad, worked long hours. When you're starting a business, he bootstrapped the whole thing. There was no venture money. It was take the money out of the house, take the money, that we otherwise would have spent on, I don't know, a vacation. Like I don't know. But they rubbed every penny they got, and they put it all in. Like it was burn the boats mentality. We're at the island, torch the boats. We got to make this work. There was no plan B, C, and D.
Yep.
And I think for me, that foundation is what has me become an entrepreneur today. I think, I went to business school. I went, did all that stuff, got my degree, and while I think that's good in some regards, but foundationally, I was able to witness it firsthand, what it requires to be an entrepreneur and a leader of a business. And so 14 years ago, at the height of the global financial crisis, I was handed the torch, and there was no fanfare. It was, this company is hemorrhaging millions. We're primarily in the U.S. So for many of the Canadians in the room, the global financial crisis hit us in Canada, but it paled in comparison to what it did in the United States. And so I had a decision to make. Either I was going to help, rise the boat, because the boat was taking on water and it was on fire, or I was going to go down with it. And I'm a fighter on a good day. And I was given the helm, and in fact, I believe I became this because it wasn't about our products and or services. It was about how we were leading people. Yes. And I think we lost our way back then. And in 2010 time frame, we refocused. I call it, we restarted the business by putting people first, and that just catapulted us to where we are today. So they usually say an overnight success is 10 years. Maybe ours is a bit more, 12, 13. So
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Honestly, I gotta tell you. So, I've mentioned this to you before, but your social media is true leadership in itself. When I see your social media on your Instagram accounts, the messages that you're sending to people, I honestly feel like you're speaking directly to me. And a lot of times when things get stressful or hard, and I see this stuff, it brings me back to the point of when we first begun. And it's so encouraging, and it provides strength to so many entrepreneurs who are just starting out. And I want to thank you for that. And like I said, your leadership bleeds through very easily in the way that you speak, and the comfort that you give. And I fell in love with your philosophy of how you run your company. And I'm sure that a lot of other people are very thankful for that as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the accolades. I think today, I think social can be a crowded, noisy, distracting place. I just set out to add value to people, certainly in our community, and to help future leaders. That's really why I'm out there and putting myself out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tony, Roma Moulding is known not only for its products, but it's mainly for its culture. What core values anchor your leadership style?
So, I think how we differentiate, I think we live in a really cool era where everybody can make anything. They can make this pen, they can make this t-shirt, they can make these things. Yep. I think phones in many regards have become commoditized. Yep. Okay, this one's a little flashier, maybe this one has a little more pixels. I think your company, the only true differentiator is how you make people feel.
Yeah,
both internally and externally. And so internally, I knew that if we were going to deliver remarkable experiences, so if everything else is commoditized, how are we making people feel? I had to look internally. How am I and our leadership team, making the internal team, how are they making them feel? And that's why I started first, because inward, you can't deliver great customer experiences with horrific people or people who just don't feel they're in the right spot, going in the right direction for the right reason. And so that's what we did. So philosophically, I would say you got to be known for me, a pillar of that is integrity and transparency. I think you gotta love the people that show up, and you gotta love them in a manner that you're serving them.
Yeah.
And I think business today, teaches a very, very different acumen. I try my best to be the servant leader. I tell people I'm here to serve you. Like in our one-on-ones with all my team leaders, I'll ask them, 3 fundamental questions. The last question is, what can I do to better serve you? Yeah. And it's you do that over a prolonged period of time. At first you'll get some really interesting answers, but at the end, if you're doing it correctly, they're going to say, nothing. I just appreciate that you're there, and I know you're there, and that's all I need. Great. Let's keep going.
Yeah, just the support behind you is enough sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that become the hardest when working for a company is feeling comfortable in the company, knowing that you matter, right? And I think it starts from the top and comes down. And I think that everything that you say and with your leadership, it provides them with that to be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you emphasize leadership over management, and how do you personally define leadership in today's business world? I think we talked about that just a little bit just a minute ago there.
Yeah, I think the whole term of management I think is more task oriented. I think leadership is more an action.
Yes.
I think it's no different than when you're in a university course, or any course for that matter. There's usually informative learning, and like they tell you 1 + 1 is 2. They're informing you of what the formula is. And then there's transformative learning, and I don't know if you've had the pleasure, I'm sure you have, but I've had the pleasure of being, having some leaders, profs, whoever they may be, that when I stepped in that class, I was glued to their word. And it was because they were not talking down to me. They were actually expanding what I already knew. Yep. And there was like literally shifts in my understanding. So I call it transformative learning. I think leadership's the same. Yeah. I think leadership could be taught. I really believe that. I don't think you're born with leadership. I think some people have it more than others. But it's certainly, I would say, transformative rather than it being task oriented. So what do I mean by that? I think you gotta show people the way instead of tell them the way. I think it's easy. You must do X, Y. I think you got to show them, and you'll hear me say this a lot. People don't listen; they imitate. And so, oftentimes, if you're having, a team member who's either not not aligned or not moving in the right direction or not grasping it, I encourage every leader to take a look at themselves and say, have you walked in their shoes? Have you shown them the way? Have you been there with them? Like, what have you done? I always say, having people, perform a task at a level of 8, 9, or 10 in excellence. What have you done to help them?
Yeah.
Outside of giving them like an SOP or something, like, what have you really done? And I think we can all recall times, especially when we're young. Like, I had a soccer coach who just believed in the kids. He believed in us, and so you need the belief. And then he would be on the field with us and show us, and he was patient, he was kind, but he would actually do the drills with us.
Yeah.
And seeing him, it was more, how can I imitate being like that rather than the technique itself.
Yeah, inspiring. Yeah, and make yourself as a leader a true part of the operation.
Absolutely.
I think that's so important, and that's one of the things, like being the CEO of my own company. We a lot of times, like I have visions. I have visions of what I want to do with the company, where I want it to go, how I want to grow it. And for me, myself, my company is me, right? Of course, I have aspirations of bringing people on and hiring people to grow the business and expand and all that stuff. And I think that's a lot of the time it's strategic planning, and the plan has changed so many times over, right? And you start to learn what works, what doesn't work, what is delusional, or you could say a fantasy versus what is actual real, and what is growth happens, not like you said, right? Not overnight, but it takes time. And I think that's one of the most important things, is to solidify yourself, organize yourself, but be true, be honest to yourself and the people around you, and be true to your customers and your staff. I think that's what makes a good business. And it as a leader, a lot of the time it's well, I guess I can ask you this: how do you balance making tough business decisions with maintaining compassion and humanity with everything around us?
Yeah, so I think listen, business is not an easy game. There's a reason why 1% of the population are entrepreneurs. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
So I think how I do that is, I've set up core values within our company. They're my guiding principles. I try to hire and fire, or I do hire and fire based on our values. And so when people show up and we got to make some tough calls and tough decisions, it's not how I felt that day. Mm-hmm. It really lends itself to, hey, these are the values we created. These are the values you were hired based on. And these are the values that you'll be, kind of pegged towards, meaning your actions must align with those values, even though sometimes you'll make an error. But if it was an error in judgment based on those values, meaning you either misinterpreted but your intentions were good, then we'll course correct. So I think for me, business gets tough, but what anchors me is my values. And when I say that, is our company values.
That's very important. Absolutely. When I'm leading my company, and my one true thing is always making sure that the customer is taken care of. The customer is always right, I guess you can say, but it's more about that. I try to ingrain myself as treating the client like they're part of my family. I'm there to help you. I'm there to walk you through things. I'm there to guide you, but also, like, I will always be here. I'm not just gonna disappear, the next day. And it's worked for me, right? I've been successful with it, and that's how I see it, right? I don't see it as just, there's a term, caring about the job and the client over profits, treating people, making sure that you're taking care of them over profits, right? It's not about spending 30 minutes with them and then leaving because you've only budgeted for this amount of time. It's making sure that the client is taken care of from start to the end. And that's worked for me. That's worked for me really well. But
Amazing.
yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, like culture is clearly a huge part of what you do. What practical steps can leaders take to intentionally build a world-class culture?
Great question. So foundationally, to determine where you want to go, you got to know where you're at.
Yes.
And depending on the size of your company, a simple exercise I often tell entrepreneurs is if you're 5 people in the company or 25 or 100, ask them this one simple question: what would be 3 words that would best describe company ABC? What would those 3 words be? And accumulate it. Accumulate the 5, make them independent, and make them anonymous. Yeah. And that those 3 words would actually be a good base or foundation to tell you what your company is. So yeah. If I'll give you an example, if someone were to ask a question like what would be currently at Roma, what would be 3 words to describe Roma, right? It would be probably something around the realm of we never give up, be humble, and strive for greatness, or something along that line, right? Yeah. Now, if you ask somebody else's company, they might say 3 words to best describe this company. No one cares. We're okay with okay, and I don't know, a bleeding ship. I don't know, but that'll give you a good litmus test. So once you have that, then you need to define what do you want it to be, and that really stems from the top. It stems from whoever the entrepreneur, leader, name it whatever you want, CEO, and or leadership team. Like who do we want to be, and what's that delta? I think that's step 1. We all know the notion, fail to plan to fail. And oftentimes everybody wants to win, but they don't know what winning looks like. So if I was to ask you, 3-5 years out, what do you want your company to be known for? 3 best things, right? What do you want? And you need to define that with a high degree of detail. You got to carve that vision out, and then you would be on to step 2, 3, and 4. But I would say foundationally, you got to know who you are and where you want to go. That would be step 1.
That's perfect. Very well said. Thank you.
Of course.
Absolutely. Mentoring and guiding the next generation of your business, and not just that, because you have such a large part in social media. You've inspired countless young leaders. What do you believe today's youth need to learn the most from their mentors?
I think they need. There's a few things. I think a good leader is not always going to tell people what they want to hear. I've learned this probably over the last 15 years or so. Anybody can tell the truth, and the hard truth, or the brutal truth, or whatever you want to call it. But oftentimes it doesn't leave people in the right spot. Well, I'm going to tell you the honest to God truth, and it's a brutal honesty. I shifted that to say you need to be truthful with grace, and I use the grace overlapping truth. Truth is truth, but if you say it in a manner that has the individual feel a different way, like you can tell someone that they're not performing well, truthfully, and want them to jump off a bridge, so to speak, metaphorically. Or you can tell them they may not be performing well in a different manner that leaves them inspired to want to shift or course correct and become the best they can be. And so I think, leaders got to be telling the truth, and they got to be doing it with grace that leaves people believing in themselves. I think we all have, infinite potential. I think, God made us all in the image of himself and with infinite possibility. And I think as a leader, our job is to dust off really. I think all I do as a leader is kind of open up a door that's already been there. Like there's so much gold in there. I just don't think that individual sees the door. And a good leader opens that door and has them see their full potential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you believe then that like good leaders are growing versus found?
Yeah, I believe you're taught. Leadership is a skill. I believe you could be taught leadership. I don't think you're born to be a leader. Just like you're not born to be an astronaut, like you're taught to be an astronaut.
Absolutely.
And I think the same for leadership. And I think schools primarily miss the mark when it comes to leadership. I think like leadership should be a course.
Absolutely.
I think we should be teaching leadership from JK all the way to grade 12 and into university. I think it should be a mandatory. I mean, just think of how would the world be if we're inspiring what it means to be a leader. Because just because you're a leader of an organization, that's great, but you could be the leader of your family. You could be the leader of a church group. You could be a leader of a golf club. You could be a leader of, I don't know, a few people, at a grocery store that you're responsible for. Like, we put people in these leadership roles without any formal proper training outside of some HR course that someone begrudgingly has to take to be a leader. So absolutely. When you look at young people entering the workforce, what leadership traits do you wish they would develop earlier? Listen, I'm not sure. I wish them to learn something earlier. I feel for young people entering the market. I really do. I think they've been taught a certain narrative in school that I'm not sure is reality. Like I think education has lagged. That's just my opinion. I think it's lagged. I think it's antiquated, and my advice for anybody entering the work, like even for myself, when post university came out, thought I knew everything, and then in I came out in 1999, and I don't know if you recall that, but it was the .com boom, and everybody was making money, and it was, and boy, did I get a rude awakening. And when the markets tanked, it's not like I went to my textbook and said, okay, when the stock market crashes, what do I do? I just think we have to better equip this next generation coming into the workforce today that is going to be dramatically different even in 3 years from now. Everybody hears the term AI and how it's going to transform, or it's going to I think really change the way we do things at an alarming rate. Yet people coming out like I think we have to do a better job of preparing them instead of wishing they had these sorts of things.
100%. I'll tell a quick story here based on leadership. And coming out of college, I had spent already about 10 years working for a company part-time, now looking to get into the workforce full-time, and they were looking to give me the opportunity as a leader, as a manager in the company. And I had the work ethic, I had the time spent in learning the company, I had the education background. On my resume, I had everything. But the one thing I didn't have was leadership. I was never in a leadership position before that point. Coming into it was a very hard role. and I fell flat on my face, and I didn't last long as a leader, right? And I tell you, I honestly don't think that it wasn't until I started my own company and I'm doing what I do now that I learned what leadership what is, and that I learned what work ethic is, and that I learned to dream big but also be humble and caring and kind. Being that was one of the biggest things. I'm a part of a wellness intelligence community, and the one thing that one of my mentors taught me was be kind. That's her saying, be kind, be a kind human, right? And that's kind of my new philosophy for how I live life and how I do work, and how I approach things is with kindness, right? And I always have this saying with my wife is, it's not really about being the bigger, better person, but it's about believing that if you can pull yourself to being kind and being a kind human and wanting to help, and your intentions are right, that other people will see that and adapt and hopefully do the same. And that's just going to make for a better world, right? And that's kind of how things have changed for me. And I think coming out on my own and starting my own business has given me that flexibility to be able to do that. And I'm very, very, very appreciative for that.
Amazing. And I can vouch for you. You are very kind. I was also
Thank you,
a client of yours, so
yes,
you are
yeah.
very kind.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. What advice would you give to someone in their early 20s trying to find their purpose or calling? Because I know I think that a lot of people really struggle with that, right? Like you were saying, like you had you were following in your dad's footsteps. You watched him build something from scratch, from nothing, and you watched him struggle. You watched him build the foundation. And I think as parents, that's what we all want, right? Is we want our kids to follow suit in what it is that we do, right? But what would your advice be to someone in their early 20s to find their purpose or their calling, to find something of value, something to help them, like you were saying, like with your company, it's all about culture. I think that's a perfect place for somebody who is starting out, fresh out of school or their first job. What do you think?
I think this is a big question. Oftentimes gets overlooked, and I'm not sure it's answered correctly. For me, I mean, if I was in my early 20s, I would, and I didn't kind of fixate on, say, like I always want to be in the financial markets. Like if you don't have that, or I want to go into broadcasting because I love hockey and like hockey's my life. Like if you don't have that, here's what I would tell you. I think your purpose isn't found until you try a lot of things. And I think try things and poke things and be curious about things. Now, you're never gonna find what you're looking for if you open one door. You gotta open a number of doors before you find a door that kind of feels right. So I would say, like, you gotta show up. You gotta try things, a lot of things, and I always say, like, you have to show up to want to serve others versus others serving you. What do I mean by that? Like, when you join a company, this whole entitlement has to go out the door. Ask what you can do more of in that company, rather than
agreed.
Rather than they should be doing this for me. Show up. I always say the person that gets promoted is the person already doing more work.
Yeah.
Right? They're already doing the job, right?
Yeah.
Like, just keep over-delivering if you found the right door. Over-deliver. But I think until you find the door, open a lot of doors. Knock on a lot of doors. Try a lot of things. Ask to work for free. Like, go in and find what it is that tickles your fancy, that you're interested in, that you could talk about. And I would say that that would be my advice for a 20 something year old who, is searching for purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I tried many different things. I
Yeah.
went to school for accounting and business,
Wow.
and I tried accounting, and then I did a designation in supply chain management, and I did that for 4 or 5 years, and then I fell into something one day that seemed to be a meaningless job, working at a desk for an electromagnetic field company, and I learned everything that I could about my job. And I fell in love with the field. I fell in love with what it is, what I do. And I saw a huge opportunity in me being able to take my knowledge, expertise, and skills from being behind a desk and taking that to being able to go into people's homes and connect with them and show them and teach them and educate them on what a healthy home actually really is, right? And what are the benefits and the impacts of having this? And I can tell you, the biggest thing that I could take from that is that I went from being somebody who was behind a desk, like you were saying, expecting things from a company, to learning what it is to be able to, if I could go backwards into the workforce and say, what is it going to take to make this company successful, and how can I help do that, and then driving myself to meet those goals. And I think that leadership is really didn't come upon me until it was me doing and leading and guiding and putting everything I had, like you said, in the beginning, going back to there is no plan B, C, or D. This has to work. I'm putting everything I have into this. Every penny I get, every profit I make goes back into it. And that's how I've built the platform, the foundation, and hopefully the future for my company and maybe my daughter. I don't know. We don't know what the future holds, right? But we're trying to do things the right way. And I think
Yeah.
that's what matters, making a difference
Absolutely.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I tell you, one of the things that I was so impressed by, in having you as a client and meeting your family, was your faith, and I know you are a man of faith,
Yep.
and that's important because for me, I can tell you, like, I had this discussion with my wife just a couple days ago about just honestly, genuinely, I had this moment where I just woke up one day and it was like the snap of a finger. I felt so energetic and like so genuinely happy about the people that I have around me, my situation, my company, everything. I just felt so like in touch with, um, thankful that God had given me this. I think that's the perfect word, right? And when I met you and I met your family, I felt the same thing, right? And you know how they say when you meet good, kind people, you just know right away. I honestly, genuinely felt that,
Oh, thank you.
when I was working with you. So yeah, so you're open about your faith. How does your relationship with God influence your leadership and daily decisions?
Yeah, so I certainly am open about my faith. It's odd to say that because that would insinuate others are closed, and
Yes.
unfortunately that is the world. Like, so for me, I'm open about my faith as a Christian. It you know I think for me it's not so much a religion. I actually don't believe it's a religion. I actually believe it's a way to live, and
Yeah.
ultimately, I think your faith is your foundational moral compass. Um, for me, everything I do, everything I say, I ask for guidance and wisdom. through prayer. And I think people have this misconception about people that are of faith, that they're somewhat held to a higher standard or something. I'm no different than the next entrepreneur you have on here. The only difference is my foundational base, bedrock foundation, call it whatever you want, is biblical principles. And for me, so everything I try to do, whether it's raise my family, run my business, be the best I can be as an example, always stem back to my foundation and my faith. And for me, it's easy, because it's part of who I am. It's not like this thing I pull out. It's like in my heart. And I think, at the core of it is how are we treating people?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I aim to be really great. I tell people, don't hold me to perfect, hold me to really great. But how we treat people, I think, in the end, is all people are going to remember. And no different than how you treated my family. I like to believe we showed up a certain way for you. I think that makes for great partnerships, friendships, relationships. At that very foundational level. So I think it's a differentiator for me and my family, and that is our moral compass.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. My grandfather was a big part of the church growing up, and so he was the leader of the family. We had a very big family on my mom's side, and everybody. My grandfather was the one person that everybody kind of worshipped because of what he did for each and every single one of the family members, and he was just a true leader. And he was a father figure for me as well. And as a kid growing up, we did everything with him. Fishing, and he taught us the basics of not just the basics, but of what a father is, right? He was the Grand Knight with the Knights of Columbus for decades. And after his death, when he passed, I wanted to follow suit and honor him as a man, as a leader, and as somebody who really inspired me. And I joined the Knights of Columbus, and I could tell you, I think that is where it kind of changed for me. In terms of everything. It was right around when I started my business a couple years after, and I went from feeling like a broken, lost man to somebody who has started to find themselves, and it was the people around me that gave me the support, strength, and I didn't even know it was happening, right? I couldn't see it. It just went from life being a struggle every day, working in a job where you just really weren't sure the path, but that was because I couldn't see the future. And now looking back at that, I see that it wasn't just one thing who made me who I am today. It was all the people around you, it was God, it was my family. Me and my wife have been together since we were 24 years old, so we've been together 20 years, and she's been there since the very beginning. And so for me, that means so much to me, and the gratitude that I have for everything around me. That's what I think makes worth living. That's what I'm holding on to when days get tough.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. In a world of shortcuts and instant gratification, how do you stay grounded in character, integrity, and servant leadership?
Yeah, I think this world's a fast world. I think things are rapidly
It's
changing.
very fast.
I try to carve out time in the day to slow it down. Usually in the morning, prior to the gym, I usually do my best to dedicate a chunk of time for prayer, where I slow the world down, and I actually have a conversation through prayer, and where I reflect on how did the day go yesterday? Always asking for wisdom and guidance, protection, to guide my actions and my speech, that my words transform, that they don't hurt, but yet they inspire. So I try to keep grounded that way. I'm very I try to live as self-aware as possible. I think that's important. How are we making people feel, and are we making a difference? I think that's my constant. Am I making a difference in my family? Am I making a difference in the community, in my business? I live by the adage, be careful of your actions. You might be inspiring somebody, and you don't know it, right? So, I would say that's how I do it.
That's great. That's very well said, and I think that was actually one of the things that I try to remind myself to stop, to remember to be thankful, and to hold gratitude towards those around us that helped us get to where we are. And one of my biggest mentors, I believe you met him, Tony Muscat. He, right from the beginning, was a leader, was somebody who was always there to answer all of my questions. It really put me in a spot that I can't wait for the day that I get to give back the same way that he gave to me. And I think one of the biggest things too, and that's what, and I actually, I do that already, and in a couple of different ways. And I have colleagues all over Canada and the U.S., and I really, really make myself available to those that are just starting out, to help them, to guide them. I don't want your money. I just want to help, right? And I think that goes a long way, and people don't forget that either, right? And I think that is one way that I can give back, and based on what I've taken from my mentors, the kindness, the generosity, the time they've given me, right? And giving that back to the people around me.
Amazing.
Yeah. And a huge part of my world is I've been a referee in hockey with the Greater Toronto Hockey League for 20 years, and the more experience that you get in being a leader, or being a part of something like that, is that it's not just about being on the ice. It's not just about hockey. It's not about the money that we get paid. It's more so now about the giving back and mentoring and helping. And there's a lot of thankfulness that you can get out of giving back, because it's the kids, right? It's all about the kids. It's about the people around us. It's about training. It's about teaching people. It's leadership, right? I think that's what it is. That's what it comes down to. And let me ask you this. So, I mean, there are some times, some difficult times as a leader, sure, that you put yourself in a position where you see something and something is wrong. And how do you bring that about into correcting it?
Like in business, or
in business, yes, like where that something is not right, there's a controversy on that subject, and
it's pretty easy. It's easy for us, when you develop a culture based on core values and principles. It doesn't become about what's right or wrong. It becomes, hey, like what were the values that we created? There are values that we created. We hired you based on them, and we fire based on them. Do your actions align with our values? And it's not never, is Tony going to get upset? That's never the conversation. It's, do our actions align with the values that we all created? And if they do, great. And if they don't, why not?
Yeah,
it becomes a simple coaching mechanism. Like if someone's walking around, beating their chest, I'm the best, I'm number one, and our core value number 7 is be humble. I'm going to ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, How do your actions align with value number 7? And oftentimes, when you put it that way, they'll be like, yeah, I didn't see it that way, but, I was not being humble. Yeah, what would you rank yourself, right? Oh, probably a 3. All right. How could we have shown up as a 7, an 8, or a 9, or a 10?
Yep.
And so it doesn't make them wrong, so to speak. It reminds them of the guiding principles that they may have just, for some reason or another, either missed or missed the mark on. So it doesn't make them wrong, so to speak, because I'm like, core value number 7's be humble. Dude, you're walking around beating your chest. You tell me.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
So it becomes simpler when you define core values. Should be a way, and it should be actionable.
Yeah.
So that when the actions arise that are not aligned, it could easily be outlined.
Absolutely. Would you say that your core values with your company were there when you had already started, or was it something that you more or less had to develop? And
we had no values. We had no values. No formal values. There's always tribal values.
Yes.
Like cover your butt, or like just do enough. Like there are values in companies. A value in the government. If we work for the government, it's probably just do enough.
Yeah.
Don't rock the boat. Right. Those are unwritten kind of tribal core values. At our company, it's starkly different. It's starkly different. We praise people on building a team environment.
Yeah.
We praise people for being humble. We praise people for learning and developing.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony, you're making me want to come work for your company.
I mean, listen, our company's great, certainly, but not perfect, never will be. But we are a great group of people, by and large, the best in the industry as far as assembly is concerned, and there's no magic, right? Like it's about leadership, it's about the foundations and principles, and I think the success of your company is predicated on what you tolerate.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to tolerate in your company? Are you tolerating lackluster behavior? Are you tolerating foul language? Are you tolerating lateness? Are you tolerating okay or coming in third place? Like success. That's what predicates the success of a business, is what you tolerate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that it's a top-down thing, where leader to leader, right? Like you were saying in the beginning, where you mentor your leaders, right? And your leaders mentor their staff, and it's just a trickle-down effect. And it's you look at the Toronto Blue Jays this year and what they accomplished going to the World Series. You could tell it was a lot of the little guys that carried the load, and you can tell that there must be something going on in that change room, in that team, that they can carry that kind of a load and go up against the Dodgers toe to toe for 7 games, and they should have won 10 times over. But it's go beyond the scenes in the off season, and you see everybody talking about the same thing. It was the locker room. It was leadership in the locker room that made them that way. And it comes from leaders, right? It stems from leaders. Absolutely. How do you balance being a CEO, a husband, father, man of faith, without losing yourself in the process? Because I think this is something that a lot of people really tend to struggle with, and I can tell you, I struggle with it. Mm-hmm. I do. It's something that is not easy to do. You really have to separate yourself from your business sometimes, and that's very hard to do.
So I would say, in answering this succinctly, this whole notion that there's ever going to be balance is a fallacy. Yeah. It's just not. There are going to be days that your family's going to need you and you need to go. and there's going to be days that your business needs you and you got to go. I think at the nucleus, family takes priority, but it must be counter offered with the business. I mean, if you're talking about business, and you gotta know your negotiables and non-negotiables, and you gotta be clear on what's important to you. Like I don't know how to say it differently. Like exercise is important to me. My physical and mental health is important to me, so I prioritize what I eat. I prioritize my time in the gym. So I prioritize that physical fitness. I also prioritize having fun. I play soccer with the boys every Thursday night. I prioritize my faith. I'm in church every Sunday, and that's kind of a thing. I also prioritize my business. When I'm at work, I don't get 20 calls from my wife. I just don't, unless there's an emergency. She knows I'm here and I need to be here for my team. But when I'm home, I'm not taking 20 calls from the office. So you have to be disciplined. You need to be focused. You need to be consistent, and you need to know what's important to you. And you got to drown out all the distractions. I think the biggest, I don't think people are talking about it enough, but I think the biggest reason people don't achieve what they want in their life is distractions. Hockey's a distraction, football is a distraction, soccer, all the things the Roman Empire did, 2,000 years ago to distract the people. They're still doing it today. Movies, movie stars, this, that. Like I think there's this whole, there's whole distractions out there, idolizing those people, and then, watching them follow their dream, but you're not following yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think if people get that right, they'll be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember working for somebody else and then coming home, and you try to leave everything at work, but it's not always that easy. And there's a lot of times there's a lot of stuff going through your head. The first thing I remember being in a leadership position, working for another company, first thing you do in the morning when you wake up, grab your phone, check the emails, right? What am I walking into today? And you see a lot of stuff on social media, and you hear a lot of people talking about it, right? And that's, give yourself that time personally to wake up, to take care of your family before you get to the office, and look at those emails. But a lot of times I like to be able to process what it is so that I'm not just reacting. It's more thought out, it's more calculated, it's more strategized how I'm going to deal with certain situations. And that's something that, again, it's just balance. It's finding a balance, right? And there's days when my phone doesn't stop ringing, and there's days when, text messages are overwhelming. And there's certain other colleagues that I work with that, you can't get them after 5 o'clock. They just will not answer their phone. They will not answer their text messages, no matter how much you call them, right? And I think what it is it really becomes ingrained that person is done at 5 o'clock, right? And if you want to reach that person, you got to reach them during business hours. And I think that comes with building your business as well, right?
Yeah, it depends what you want. I go back to priority, right? Like if you're new starting a business, the first 3 years, you got to grind it. You got to take every call, take every text. Like, that's why 1% of the population are entrepreneurs. So, maybe this fella who doesn't take a call after 5, God bless him, right? But I think you got to determine what you want.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? And then carve out a structure that honors what you want. Because you can still have a business. It might not scale as fast as you want if you're not taking a call after 5. And that's fine, because that's what you want. But you can't be delusional, not take a call, and then why didn't I hit $3 million in sales this year? Well, because you did 8 to 5, right? Or 9 to 5. I don't know, whatever it is. So
yeah, Yeah, absolutely. These next few questions are I consider them to be very important. It's about family, legacy.
Cool.
What I again, through meeting you and meeting your family and spending time with you guys, I realized um, it's really nice to see when families are very, very close. And I can tell you, like, what lessons do you hope your children learn from watching you lead?
I think I need the kids to know that you got to show up to serve people.
Yeah,
This whole notion that people, you're the boss and people need to show up for you, it's a horrific. The whole mindset's horrific. Like, show up to serve people and you'll win, right? I
yeah,
think they need to see, like, nothing comes easy. Like, this world's not forgiving. Like, you got to get up and you got to be disciplined. You need to be focused. You need to be
yeah,
determined. You need
yeah,
you need to be in good health. There's a number of factors I hope through my actions that they pick up. They might not pick up everything, but and I know they're watching. They're not listening. Yeah, I would say those are a few very key components.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When you think about legacy, what is the impact you hope to leave in both business and in life?
I think one that first and foremost that my faith is above all. For me, it's
Yeah,
everything. So um, I think they need to know that behind Tony's success was his love for his faith and for God. So that's first and foremost, and then I think second of all, like, and we say this to the kids every morning. Life's pretty simple. Do two things: be a leader and honor God.
yeah,
And be a leader to my family means listen to people, like, genuinely listen. Hear them, see them, right? Be there for people. Go
yeah,
above and beyond for people. In anything you do, don't strive for okay. Strive for exceptional. You might not
yeah,
always hit it, but strive for that. So those are two legacy things. Like, literally, it's our mantra in our family: be a leader and honor God. We say it every morning, every night, and yeah,
yeah,
I think it's my legacy is more an action that rather than like something I want them to like do, so to speak. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. That's very important. Um, if you just closing up here, if you could leave listeners with one leadership principle to live by, what would it be? What did your leaders what did your leaders teach you, or what was the main value of what your leaders gave to you and what you would want to pass down?
Yeah, I think there's a few, but if I had to stem it down to one, if you're blessed enough to be a leader of your church, of a team, of a community, of the Knights of Columbus, or anywhere where you have influence over people, I would say you have to strive to show people the greatness they have inside of themselves and
Yep.
leave them better than when you found them. I think that's the ultimate. I think we're created with infinite possibility, and oftentimes for me, what made the difference is when someone believed in me more than I believed in myself. I rose to that occasion,
Yeah.
and I think as a leader, if you could believe in the people who show up and serve them, man, their potential will just create ripples, whether it's in the company, the community, the church, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's number one.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, Tony, I really, really wanted to thank you for coming on today. This was something that was very special for us to have. We get a lot of building biologists on here. We get a lot of health and wellness people, but leadership guidance and true treasure to the heart is something that's very valuable. And I wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I love what you're doing. Love your business. Love your approach to business. And my hope being on here today is that we inspire, maybe even if it's one person across the nation, to take on what it truly means to be a leader.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.